glad to be included in the women's history because our people are tied to this place so intricately, both historical and today. We've been taking young girls and families out to go digging on Zumwalt Prairie over the last, 5 years? Some even before that. I remember coming out here when my kids were little and searching for roots and finding them and taking them home. I wrote down just a few things just to familiarize yourself with me. My mother is Nez Perce. She's full-blooded Nez Perce, Josephine Moody, and her parents were Bill and Lizzie Hayes Moody from Kamei. My grandpa was from Ferdinand, and they're from the Whitebird Band, and also the Old Joseph Band, and the Looking Glass Band. My mother and father had 7 children, 1 brother, and then 6 girls. The brother was the oldest. And he went on to become quite an accomplished actor and director, and he wrote and produced the one-man play called According to Coyote that you may have seen here when my nephew Kellen came here and performed. But my brother performed it at the Kennedy Center and also took it internationally to Russia and to different places. Unfortunately, he passed away in 1988, and so then the girls were left. And my sisters are all very, very accomplished. I look up to all of them. Our youngest, the baby, she's a Washington State Senator. She just finished the legislature just, what do you call it, retired?
Adjourned.
Adjourned, yeah. So she's busy with that, and my sister Joanne has her own business, Kaufman and Associates. I think she's part of the people that, or she bought a share of the Wallowa Lodge when it was opened up for shares. And my sister Hattie was a CBS journalist, one of the first Native American national journalists. My sister Carla, who also did the play and is residing in Plains, Montana. I hope I'm not forgetting any of them. They'll let me know if I do. And then there's me. And I can tell you that we grew up in the Seattle area, and then we'd go home to the reservation at Kamei to visit our grandfolks. And my father was a World War II veteran. He was wounded in action, and my mother, who had lupus, struggled with health issues most of her life, but managed to raise us as best they could. We didn't have a lot of money or a lot of income, and we didn't have a lot of, like, regalia, the items you see upstairs. We didn't have a lot of that. So we depended on the community of Seattle, who would share things with us. If we wanted to dance or learn how to dance, or learn how to dress, they would provide us with moccasins or a dress or a shawl and show us how to make them. So a lot of those things, I guess I learned at a young age that if you want to do something, you're gonna have to learn how to do it and how to make it yourself. So my grandmother, Lucille Moody, who lived in Lapwai, I stayed with her one summer when I was about 13, and she was teaching me how to tan hides. And I was horrible at it. But she didn't give up on me. She said, okay, well, let's try beadwork. So then she would show me how to bead, and I was kind of horrible at that too. At 13, you know, we're not thinking about those things, we're thinking about other things. I guess it kind of sticks in my mind because, you know, she not only tried to teach me the tanning and the beadwork and the language and how to dance and how to participate and knowing who my family is, knowing who my relatives are, because we were raised in Seattle, we didn't know all of our family, and it's huge. You know, we're related to so many people in so many ways. So then when I had my children, I have 7 children, I have 19 grandchildren, and I have 1 great-grandson. It was starting again from scratch, trying to build up their outfits so they could dance. So it's a lot of making things and a lot of trial and error, and as I got older I got a little better at it, and I got a little bit better at it, and so as I got older and I was around different people that showed me different things. I was shown weaving when the kids were in Head Start, and Catherine Ramsey was the teacher at that time. Now she'd be Kaylin's grandma. She was teaching Head Start then on how to weave, and because raising 7 children, I do it when I could, but I didn't do it all the time. So now that I got older, things kind of slowed down, and the kids have their own families now, and I have the time to learn. My husband, Bill Timentwa, and I moved to his reservation at Colville. He's Chief Joseph Band in Palouse. A very dear friend of ours, Colleen and Rodney Costin, I told her I'd like to learn, and so she brought out this yarn, and she brought out this twine and said, okay, do this, and she showed me how to roll up the yarn and how to weave, and that was about 8 years ago. Wow. I think we moved up there in 2015, and it just kind of took. It finally was making sense on how to do this. I wasn't getting these big knots like I used to, so my hands started to accept it, and you get that muscle memory into your fingers when you're really doing something, and then it just clicks and it starts making sense. And Colleen was, well, you're really good at this, you need to keep doing it. And so it made me feel really good, because Bill's family, on the Timentwa side, his aunt Tilly Gore and Elaine Emerson are master weavers. They're recognized throughout the Northwest, and I think with the Arts and Humanities in DC, they've just received all these accolades for being weavers. So I kind of had that, okay, I gotta learn how to do this, because I'm married into a weaving family. You better, step up and start weaving. And with Colleen's help and Rodney's and the ladies at Naspilum, I began to pick up more and more of the weaving. And they took me out to harvest cedar to make cedar baskets, and just sharing so much information. It was wonderful. So when I would come home to Lapway, and I'd have, like, my kids got my first hats, of course, and they're, a little bit wonky, but, not too bad, and they were so happy to get them because they've never had them before. Growing up, I didn't grow up in the Longhouse. We were Nez Perce Presbyterian, was what my grandma was. But as I became more involved in the Longhouse, I began to see that the young ladies needed to have those hats. Once they're recognized as diggers, once they're recognized as providers, and they've been doing it for a while, and you see them and you watch them and how they conduct themselves, and they earn it over time. And a lot of times it's like a hat like this made out of yarn, and as they get older and more recognized in their leadership, they'll eventually get a corn husk. And I've never had one, so I learned how to make them. Now I can make the corn husk. They taught me how to, it's a different type of weaving, how to make the corn husk. I did have some descriptions on the things that are up there, but I still want to talk a little bit more about the why I'm doing this, why I like it. I think I talked a little bit about the women's roles. I think another thing that's important is the climate change that we're seeing, because so much of the women's roles are tied into the seasons and the gathering of things and preparing and taking care of the home, and making things and making sure you have food all the year round. And the climate change really impacts that, because our time to gather the foods, or to gather the tules to make the tule mats, is getting shorter and shorter. And you have to go further and further. But what I'm finding out is that our people used to travel a long ways. We weren't tied to this reservation land, and we weren't tied, just to Alawa. We traveled to California, to Montana, to Wyoming, to gather things. And so it's not uncommon that once a place becomes more scarce to find the foods to explore other places. And that kind of ties into the work we've been doing with Kathleen and the Wallowa Homeland and the Wallowa Land Trust on identifying or revitalizing or revisiting those digging sites and kind of placing our print there so that they know, yeah, we are tied to this place. And when you start digging, you just feel it, you know. I don't know if Kathleen's ever felt it, but the kids feel it, and the ladies feel it. And being able to share those foods with the community when we have our feast is so important, because that's fulfilling that circle. Because it's not just for you, it's for whatever you're providing. You're helping that connection to make that full circle. On my future goals, I think you saw upstairs there's that little tiny Thule house. Bill and I did one winter when we must have really been bored and nothing to do. All our favorite shows were on. But we decided, come on, we should try it. We should see, you know, what's involved in that. And so we did. We made that little model. And then we went to like Umatilla, their museum, or you can go to Yakima, and Wanapum, you can see they have the great big, like life-size Thule mats. And so some of the young ladies, like AJ Whiteplume, myself, my girls, Jasmine and Nicole, we were like, you know, we can do it. We can do it. We just have to do it. And so last summer, and it's part of that Wellbriety movement, part of ladies that are in recovery, that are getting well, and they want to connect, and it's important they be busy, you know, keep active, you know, create those new circles. So they decided they're going to go out and gather all these tules. So they gathered a whole bunch of tules, and then they brought them to my house. So I was like, okay. So my shop, my shed, my little she shed, is full of these tules that are about this big. And when they brought them, they weren't, you know, cleaned or sorted. So I had to go in and clean them and sort them, and you know, get them organized. And then we had a couple of Thule mat, what do you call it, workshops, or I don't know, where we got together, we had food, and we started sewing the mats together, because they really weren't too familiar with how to do it. So it's kind of like, so we're teaching, and we're learning, and we're sharing, and we're building something for the community. We're building something, and when I share, like if I do a Thule mat class or something, I always say, whatever you're taught, and whatever you're picking up and learning, keep doing it, and then share it with somebody, because there's somebody that needs to learn, and that's how we perpetuate our culture and our traditions. And that's what I do with my hats, and that's what I do with my dresses, and the things I make is that sharing. Because now my grandchildren are learning how to sew and how to make the skirts and the dresses and the digging bags, and they'll get to the hats. One of my granddaughters is the valedictorian this year for Lapway High School, so I'm really proud of her. Her name's Abigail, and she was the Chief Joseph Foundation Princess, and she rode at Pendleton in the roundup and did really well. I think she got second place in the beauty contest. But you know, it's when you see your children and grandchildren like achieving things, you know, that. I feel like maybe I had a little part in it, but a lot of it was just watching them flourish, like you do in the springtime when the plants are coming up. Like, wow, how glorious is that? How beautiful is that? And that we're a part of it. And that's, you know, that's how it is, you know, with my children and grandchildren. How beautiful it is. And I think my parents were the same way. My grandparents were the same way. I can't imagine what they went through, you know, for us to get to where we are, you know. And so part of that is, well, okay, now you're a grandma now, so you have to do that too. You have to make sure you're imparting on them the things they'll need to be successful and to succeed. Because we don't know what the world's going to look like in 50 years from now. You know, we have no way of knowing. But we want to give them the skills to survive and to thrive, and also to remain true to their culture and their traditions. So in closing, I know I didn't talk about my items up there, but you kind of got a feeling of what I put into them. is one of the things that they share in the Longhouse is that when we're born, you know, we need people to help us. We need people to feed us and to dress us and to hold us. And it's the same when we leave. We need someone to dress us. We need someone to hold us. We need someone to prepare the things that we're going to be placed in the ground with. So as a grandmother and as an Perce woman, I want to make sure someone knows how to do that. I want to make sure someone knows what to do when that time comes. So if my husband can no longer sing with the drum, that there's young people that can step up and do that. If I can no longer get out there and dig, although I'd be dragging myself to get out there, I know that there's people that can do that, that can take over. So that's what the art means to me, and that's why I do it. And I hope you enjoy it. I hope you appreciate all the work and all the love that goes into every piece. I think I've given away more than I've ever sold, simply because I want to recognize people that are achieving something. There was a lady, 80 years old, that got her master's from LCSC, and her nephew says, "Oh, Carla, can I buy one of your hats?" I'm like, "No, I'll give you one of my hats. I don't want, you know, that's a big achievement. We want to recognize it. We want to recognize how we're all tied together." So I appreciate each one of you for being here and taking the time to listen to me. I haven't spoken in front of a crowd in a while, so Imakas Katsiaya, Yochklo.